My name is Peter Sipkins. I'm the chair of the Measure J Oversight Commission, and I'm calling tonight's meeting to order. Melissa, can you take order, please?
Commissioner Gavritos,
Present.
Commissioner Fedor,
Present.
Commissioner Isaac,
Present.
Commissioner Schoen,
Present.
Commissioner Thigpen,
Present.
Commissioner Wolfer,
Present.
Commissioner Hopkins, Commissioner Kravitz,
Present.
Commissioner Newby,
Here.
Vice Chair Davis,
Present.
Chair Sipkins.
Present. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Melissa. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's all stand and take the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item is the acceptance of the agenda. Any of the commissioners have anything to add or subtract from the agenda? If not, I would deem that the agenda is approved. Public comment is next on the agenda. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address Measure J Commission on agenda items and items of general interest with the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. Although the commission values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it cannot take any action on items not listed on the posted agenda. 3 minutes are assigned to each speaker. Melissa, we have public speakers tonight.
We do, we have two. Our first public speaker of the night is Mr. Jonathan Lorenzo Yopa.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, city officials and staff, and members of the public. My name is Jonathan Lorenzo Yorba. I'm the Senior Manager of Grants at the Center. And I'm here on behalf of Mike Thompson, our CEO, who asked me to thank you for considering our Measure J community initiated project titled The Center, Solar Shade Structure and Rainbow Bike Racks. I would like to specifically thank Commissioner Linda Federer, who conducted a site visit to see firsthand what the center hopes to accomplish and with much needed Measure J grant funding. Commissioner Federer asked good common sense questions that strengthened our concept and resolve. It's one thing to read a proposal on paper, it's another thing altogether to see it in person. Therefore, I would like to also warmly invite other commissioners here to do a site visit to not only see that our proposed project is in line with the City of Palm Springs strategic plan and with Measure J funding priorities and goals, but also, and perhaps equally as important, to learn about the services and programs the center offers to each and every Palm Springs resident and visitor, as everyone is welcome at the center. We don't exist simply to build shade structures and install bike racks. However, they will be an important means to our real purpose. We exist to serve Palm Springs and the broader desert community. As our vision states, come join us at the center, a space where you can belong and be unconditional you. 2 nights ago, on Tuesday, October 15th, I made public comments at the Sustainability Commission meeting and made a formal request that the commissioners consider submitting a letter of support for the center's proposal. If approved at its upcoming November 19, 2024 meeting, the letter of support will be transmitted to the chair and the commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yoba. Melissa, next speaker, please.
Our second speaker of the night is Mr. Edwin Ramon.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner, for allowing me to hold conference. My name is Edwin Ramon, and I'm a longtime resident of Palm Springs, and I'm so happy actually. I'm just celebrating my grandmother's birthday in heaven, 120 years yesterday. and she was a long-time resident of Palm Springs as well. I'm here to support, to sort of my strong support for the proposed Filipino American mural at the Duluth Community Center, which growing up we called it the Palm Springs Youth Center. It was fun. It still is. A mural at the Duluth Community Center led by Bayanihan Desert. This project is a great opportunity to recognize the cultural, social, and economic contributions of Filipino Americans to Palm Springs and the Coachella Valley. The mural will highlight stories that are often overlooked, making sure an important part of our history is remembered and honored because it's made with durable ceramic tiles. It will stand the test of time, allowing future generations to connect with and appreciate this place of our community's heritage. It was developed with input from the community, really capturing the spirit of Bayanihan, and that is a word, it's a term that means communal work, community together. There's an Ilocano version word, it's Nawa. Of coming together as a community. Duluth Park, with its deep connection to the Filipino American community, is the perfect place for this mural. Beyond its cultural impact, the mural also aligns with Measure J's goal of improving public spaces and enhancing the quality of life in Palm Springs. It will not only beautify the community center, but also serve as a lasting symbol of inclusion and diversity that everyone in the city can take pride in. I respectfully urge the commission, beyond its cultural impact, I respectfully urge the commission to approve funding for this mural, which will become a lasting cultural landmark for our entire community. Thank you for your time and have a great meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
We have no other public statements.
Next item on the agenda, item number 6 is approval of the minutes of our, September 19th, 2024 meeting, and that you will find them behind the tab in your notebooks labeled draft. Does anybody have any comments after having reviewed the draft minutes? If anybody has no comments, I will entertain a motion to approve them as drafted.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Federer. Was there a second?
There was another gal with the school district. Do we have her name, the other presenter? And should that be in the minute?
No, I do not have her name. They did not provide it to us during the.
I don't know it either. Sorry.
That's what you met the woman that passed out the basil.
Oh, yes.
That's what you were talking about. I don't
Mhm.
remember her name either, actually.
I'm sorry, I don't know either.
All right. With noting that omission, is there a second to the motion to approve the minutes? Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Melissa, and those minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda, are comments from me as the chair. I have a few. So indulge me for a few minutes. First of all, I want to encourage everybody, if possible, and whenever possible, to use the city email address. Remember, we are all subject to the Brown Act. And the last thing that you want is for somebody to make a Freedom of Information Act request, finding that you had been using your own emails and then asking you to go through every email you've sent the last 5 years. So I encourage you to use the city email address that you all have whenever possible. Secondly, I encourage you to respond to emails from our administrative assistant, the commission secretary, Melissa Sanchez, and she sends emails notifying you of the draft agenda and whether you will attend. And we'd like to know as early as possible that we're going to have a quorum, so please respond to her if and when you can. Next item is I have a list. All of you have now had an opportunity to go through the projects. There are 52 projects, if I recall, that have been submitted. 2 of those projects did not have sufficient information and have not proceeded to us. and 2 were withdrawn, if I recall, so there were 56 total submitted. But I do want to read both the project number and the names of people who have either, commissioners who have either asked to abstain or to recuse themselves from projects. Commissioner Wolper has asked to abstain from project number 50. Vice Chair Davis will recuse herself from project 43. Commissioner Isaac will recuse himself from project 41. Commissioner Thigpen will recuse herself from projects applications 23 and 40. And Commissioner Schoen will recuse herself from project 39. So thank you all for going through the 52 projects and letting the commission staff know which projects you had to either abstain or recuse yourselves from. I also wanted to announce that I think you all know this, but the bylaws, and I think the city requires separately from our own bylaws, that you attend all but 3 commission meetings during a calendar or fiscal year rather. And there have been some absences. And I just want to encourage you to try to make these meetings if at all possible, because there are requirements that the commission staff notify the city clerk in the event that you miss more than 3 meetings. So I encourage you to come or provide as valid an excuse if you can, if you're not able to make it. Those are all the comments that I have for tonight. I do want to move on to new business. And the first item on the new business is engineering project update from Joel. Joel?
Good afternoon. Last commission meeting, I believe I was asked to just come and give a brief update on projects, right? So I'll try to go through them. Some of them are not, are hold, so I'll try to just start with the very first one. It's the main library remodel. So the library remodel right now, I don't know if they provided you the budget. Typically, did you put the budget in there? Okay, in the budget, it's actually all the projects are listed there, but I'll go through them. The main library is 90% complete. The design is. So we think as of November 1st, it'll be 100% complete. And then if the schedule holds, we will be bidding that project somewhere in January, February. The goal is to get to construction around May of 2025. So the architect's been really good moving forward, did all their community outreach, and they're moving ahead. We're bringing it back to council for approval of the 100% project, I believe, and then we'll ask permission to go to bid, and we should be constructing that next year. Or at least, demoing and doing all the work that needs to be done. So that's gonna be a little complicated project because it is an existing building. The library has to actually move out somewhere else, so that those logistics, luckily I'm not in charge of, I'm only in charge of building it, so. The next project that it's actually a big project is the Plaza Theater. The internal depths of it have been pretty much completely demolished. And my project team tells me they're about a third of the way complete with the project itself. So, all the discovery, all the things that could have been found buried behind walls, I think for the most part have been found. And now we're moving forward with the rest of the construction. Let me see the Victoria Tower Training Facility and the Fire Department Fire Station #1. Those are really with the fire department. They're using a consultant to try to find locations, and that's still a process. That's a long-term project that I'm not involved with yet, but I'm assuming I will be as soon as we start moving forward into the site picked. Let me see, the J.C. Fry building is also part of the library, so it's at the same percentage complete, and it will be built at the same time. Demuse Park 88 access, that's in design right now. My team is working on it. It's part of the bigger Demuse Park. There's parking lot, infrastructure, drainage, pickleball courts are also part of, that project, or part of the park if it's a portion of that bigger project. There's what else is that? Demuse, I missed it, so I'll move on. The recreational field lighting project, which is project 1928. As of today, the soccer field lights are complete and turned on, I believe, so. We're finally completed that project. It's been a while, there was a big delay because we added soccer light parts to the project. But for the most part, my team tells me they're done, they're commissioned, and we're moving on with that, we're completed.
Good.
Let me see, and I will talk about the roundabout, it's gone, on the foot track sewer was completed. The pedestrian master plan, which is some of the funding comes from Measure J. There's two big projects that are underway, there are the road reconfigurations on South Canyon and Bracket Club. So we're using some Measure J funding to fund the pedestrian master plan, which those two projects are part of it. Right now, we're in design, or at least in conceptual stages. And then pickleball course, the plans are 95% complete, and that project is moving forward. Have an answer your question.
I actually had a conversation this afternoon with a pickleball player who played at Duluth this morning. And he was told that they've changed the construction schedule. They're now gonna actually close all the courts in March or April. And not try to do it staging where they could keep some of the courts open while they built new ones.
I think the design team, along with the proponents of the project, all got together and decided that that was the best course of action. There was an intent to try to keep some courts open, but it logistically was gonna be difficult and the cost was gonna increase, so. It really makes more sense to shut them down because these are monolithically poured concrete pads and it's better that you shut down the entire thing and build it up. Saves time and money.
That's gonna save us some money.
Yes.
I have another question of you, Joel. The 52 project applications that have been submitted include repaving certain streets. Could you, and we're gonna consider those, of course, as part of the Measure J Commission's duties, but could you explain to the commissioners the process that the city uses to grade the streets and decide which ones need to be repaved, which ones need to be torn up and completely redone, et cetera?
Sure, and if the commission wants or needs more information, we have a whole webpage dedicated to how the city paves streets. We use a pavement condition index every 3 to 5 years. We do a new report, we hire a consultant to evaluate all our streets, they look at the condition they're in. They use our data of streets that have been paved in the past, they slurried, and then they actually assign pavement condition index number to each one of the street segments, right? And it generates a big list, it gives them rankings or ratings or numbers, and we use that numbering system to pave our streets. So the Measure J Commission gave us $9 million last year for paving, and I was gonna report that, and I guess it's the very last one on my list. We are 100% complete with the $9 million paving project, and we came in under budget essentially, a little bit, 100,000 I think or two, but we paved a good portion of the city with that funding. So we have a process, the Measure J Commission, the Measure J funding account pays for all the paving, so I'm assuming that that particular project may not score as high because we already have a process of paving our streets.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions of Joel? Commissioner Shaw.
Just to clarify, in addition to the paving condition index, is there a way that your team prioritizes in terms of the amount of traffic and sort of like kind of usage of the street and relevant to how we will sort of review some of those project proposals, like how we might be able to gauge how used it is?
For the most part, we stick to the rankings of the pavement section, right? We don't pick one street over the other just because it's a certain location, it gets used more. We go strictly by the ranking. We do segregate them into major arterials and collectors or residential streets. Historically, since Measure J was an initiator, and started paying for paving, we were focusing on residential streets, right? Because they were really in bad shape. As we've progressed and as I've been here for 6 years, we've caught up doing most residential streets. There's still residential streets that we're trying to attack, but we're starting to shift our focus to our arterials. Palm Canyon, if you've driven that, you've seen how it looks now, right? It was in pretty bad shape, so we're gonna continue to do that. We're gonna expand to Remote Road and major arterials, but also keeping in mind the roads in the residential areas. So we stick to the pavement condition index, but we also use engineering judgment. If there is a street that is very close to meeting the requirement but just didn't make the list, or is adjacent to a project or a street, we may include it or we extend it just because there's some common sense in construction, and we try to use that, or engineering sense. Or something, to take advantage of the teams that are already there. So that's sort of how we evaluate it, but we mostly stick to the pavement condition index.
Thank you.
Mr. Futter.
Joel, I received on May 8th today a piece of paper that said our street was going to be slurred again, I think. Is that legitimate?
Slurry?
Slurry?
Yeah, so part of our pavement program is we do reconstruction of those streets that are very poor.
Right?
And the streets that are actually in better condition get a slurry treatment. So essentially, we put oils back on into the pavement. The pavement is made up of rocks, oils, and things of that nature. Over time, the oils leach out of it. And we rejuvenate the streets by adding a slurry. And one of the misconceptions is that people think that we go back and we're prioritizing rich neighborhoods or certain neighborhoods. We don't. What we do is if a pavement was reconstructed within 5 to 6 years, they are the ideal candidate to receive a slurry because it extends the life of that pavement for 20, 30 years. So if you don't do it and you don't insert those or introduce those oils, the street starts to crack sooner. But that is why it almost seems like we just paved the street and we're doing it again. We're not, we're actually adding oils to.
Yeah.
We're basically trying to extend the life of our infrastructure.
We're within 5 years.
There you go. So that's why we're doing it.
I didn't know what it was. Also, Palm Canyon, South Palm Canyon. Unbelievable. It is really actually beautiful as a street. If you've driven on it, it's unbelievably a
Yeah,
great
and that's,
project.
that's the effect that it has when we repave the street, right?
Took my
We
house
stripe it.
apart, but other than that,
Vice Chair Davis.
pardon?
So just, well, maybe Chris, this is for you. So what is in our budget for this next fiscal year for street paving?
I think we're 6 million.
At 6, okay. So I mean, I think just to clarify, a big part of our budget every year is already supporting street paving projects.
Yeah, and there's some consideration when we get to the next 2-year budget in the spring, whether or not we want to increase that amount, and how much do we want to increase it, and can the budget take it? So it's something to consider.
Yeah, and I'm gonna shoot and request the $9 million again, if we're able to. If we don't start the project before the end of the fiscal year, I would want to add an additional $3 million to that. Because we do get a lot of streets done with $9 million and it's economy of scale. Big companies come after these jobs and we get our money's worth because, I said earlier, this particular project came under budget, they actually just came $200,000 under the budget.
Well, I have a couple, you finished? I have a couple of questions as well. Is there a grading of sidewalks as well, like we do with streets?
We do not. In this particular city, our ordinance requires that property owners repair their own sidewalks.
And then the next question is, who makes the decision about whether or not to put bike lanes on the streets that you're repaving?
So these paving projects are not redesigning or we don't look at the engineering, we simply put back what was there. Cause if we were to spend time trying to analyze whether a bike path belongs there or not, then it wouldn't be a paving program, we'd have to, and we already have a project that looks at the walkability and the safe routes. So that's where we focus those types of projects, but in the paving program, we don't, we simply put back what's there.
Thank you very much. Any other commissioners? Yes.
Yeah. Joel or Chris, help me understand. Now we have about 6 or 7.2 million for us that we're going to be rating these projects on. We have. But in addition to that, Measure J brings in about 21 million roughly. So are the difference between that? You just said 9 million has been going to street projects each year. Is that a standing decision that's been made by the council to use that much money for street paving on an ongoing basis?
Yeah, the commission has made the recommendation of the budget to the council. So, when we did the $9 million this year, there was a year prior where we didn't use all of the 6 million and we had 3 million left over. So Joel wanted to use that this year. And so we used it, we made it 9 million, but the standard amount has been 6 million. And when we get to the next 2-year budget in the spring, we'll take Joel's recommendation into consideration, what can the budget take? And then the commission can decide what they want to recommend to council.
Okay, so we have 6 million there, we have 6 or 7.2 million for us. Where's the other 8 million to get to $21 million a year of spending?
So it's actually
Is
3
that
million.
commitments?
We have $3 million set aside each year for community initiated projects. And that 3 million will carry over each year until we enact a program like this and spend it. So then the rest of the dollars are for, there's a debt, years ago, we issued debt for the downtown project. And that's about $3 million. And then most of the rest of the dollars are used for capital projects.
Okay, and who determines the capital projects?
So
Oh, I'm sorry, who determines the capital project?
really, that's recommendations from city staff. So it's really Joel and his team that will consider projects and bring them before the commission.
Okay,
Like historically, we've brought projects, there's a whole process where the commission evaluates whether my recommendations are good or not, and they either agree with them, don't agree with them. And then I take that to council and tell them that I agree with it, the commission did, and sometimes they kind of still give it to me, sometimes they don't, so it's the way. it is. But I think things are gonna shift a little bit now that we're looking at maybe the bonding for the library, the fire station, we may have smaller amounts for projects, capital projects, and I'll have to use other funding, but I still will come and ask.
okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. In the future, we will be, we are choosing to issue debt for the library, and we're going to choose to issue debt for the fire station. So that will reduce the amount of money that Joel has for the projects.
Mr. Isaac, anything else?
Thank you.
Do any other commissioners have questions of Joel? If not, let me ask Chris, can you give a brief update on the lack of a financial report this month?
Sure. Yeah, so it's the finances that we incur early in the year are really, there's not a whole lot to report. There's 1 month of sales tax. And I will tell you the sales tax came in about the same as last year. So that was good news. But the rest of the expenses are really stuff that had carried over from the prior year. So I made a decision to choose to pull the budget update for tonight so we can focus on the community initiative projects, because we all think that that's very important. And it could generate a lot of discussion, so I didn't want to take up precious time with a boring financial statement and give that time back to Peter so he can do the community initiative projects.
Thank you for giving it back. That's just to remind the commissioners, it's a 2-month trailing report. The taxes are collected, for example, you just received the July information at the end of September, correct?
Yeah, the Measure J sales tax, the sales tax that we received, for the cash we received in September was actually for July sales. So there's a 2-month lag in when we receive the cash. And so our financial statements are cash basis right now. And so for the first couple of months, we would have shown 0. And so we would just, this September statement would show the 1 month of revenue received.
Thank you, Chris. Do any other commissioners have questions for Chris? If not, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the discussion about community initiated projects, and we're gonna have our hands full and a lot of work over the next 30 and 60 days. So let me turn it over to Vice Chair Davis.
Thank you. So everybody's ready to dig in and do some work over the next 30 days. So thank you for doing the brief review, just to identify if there are any needs to recuse yourselves or abstain from voting on and rating any of these projects. So the work before us between now and just shortly before our November 17th commission meeting is for all of us to review each and every application and provide a rating for that application. So if you're, and Melissa, do you want to pull up the form? So Melissa has put together an online submission for all of us. So that, to make it a little bit easier, so we're not having to turn in a bunch of papers. Yeah. So after this meeting, she'll send out to all of us the link to that, a reminder link, so to the access to all of the applications themselves. Melissa, if you can also include the overall process document that we went over and approved at the last meeting, just so we have everything all in one place for us. So pretty simple. The form itself is pretty simple. It's the going through all the applications that will require a lot of work. So it's just set up so that every item is listed, every application item is listed, and you'll indicate based on kind of the totality of the application and the requirements that we set forth in the process, whether you strongly consider, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, strongly consider, want the commission to strongly consider that proposal, consider it. If you feel like it needs more information, and so that could be, we need more information from the applicant. It feels like something was missing. That could be an opportunity that we'll ask them to send more information in or do a short presentation. But if there's anything there you just feel like, I'm not sure because I think we need more information, put that. If it's something you feel like we shouldn't consider, put that. And then if you have recused yourself or there's a conflict of interest, it's a way to note that. So we have until November the 15th to do all that, which really gives Melissa, then you got a couple days to consolidate that report from all of us. So the sooner we can get that done, the better, but we want to give ourselves the full month to do that since there are 52 applications.
And on the tabulation form, we are asking for you to add your city email, not your personal email, but your city email.
Up at the top, so it's
on the
your
top,
name,
right.
city email.
Here.
Perfect. And so if you have any questions that really are clarifying questions for staff, and I say like Joelle, a lot of them probably fall within your purview, but Melissa, do you want those to go through you? If you have, say, but if you feel like you can't provide a rating because there's something clarifying that you need from city staff,
That's fine.
direct those to you. Okay. Any questions about the work in the next month?
So if we had a question that would go to Joelle, but maybe the group probably wants to know the answer to the same question. I have one of these projects in my head, that first one, the Tuscany one. Because I'm curious why the city never went that far anyway with the sewer line. Was it because of the rock drilling and things like that? So that would be a question I would have for, see, that's what I thought, yeah. So would that be sent out to the group or we do that individually?
A couple of thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think so. I think we could, Joel can send the answer and then Melissa can distribute back to the commissioners.
So the process would be send the question to Melissa,
Yes.
Or
like you're kind of the,
doesn't matter. And
you're the clearinghouse, and then you can send that back to the rest of the group.
Go ahead, Commissioner Newby.
So will, just so I understand it, will all the commissioners receive both the question and the answer, so we're not duplicating questions and that sort of thing?
Yeah. And what we may do just to make them sort of more organized as I'm thinking about it is we might just, compile some of these questions, weekly or bi-weekly. And then, once we have, 5, 6, 7, 8 questions and we've provided the answers, then we'll send them out to you. So we're not killing you with one email at a time.
Sort of a FAQ.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
I do want to remind the commissioners that are filling out even of these review forms online. are subject to Brown Act, and therefore interested individuals have the right to see what we say about each project, and I just want you to keep that in mind when you're filling them out. Any commissioners have any questions about this process?
And we'll, just to add on to that, they won't be seeing it in the kind of in real time. So it'll be once everything is tabulated, there'll be a report that will be made available on the city's website with all of that information collected.
Yeah, I did have a question about the Brown Act in relation to this process. What are those guidelines if for any commissioners talking to each other? What are the limitations and restrictions there?
We'll have to take that back to the city attorney's office and see, is that the specific question that can you talk among yourselves? I think the recommendation is that you don't.
Yeah.
Is that you do it individually on your own, and then once you've made your selections, you come back to the table, and then that's when you discuss as a commission.
I'll resend the Brown Act, to everyone.
Be good.
Thank you.
And there are several questions which we are submitting to the city attorney concerning these applications as well, which we will then notify all the commissioners about city attorney's opinions about what's apparently an acceptable project for Metro J to consider. Any other questions of either Chris, Joelle, or Vice Chair Davis?
Yeah, Vice Chair Davis, you mentioned, because this is, well, we should be ready to share kind of comments on how we made the decision for our ratings, it sounds like. So do we have to kind of make sure, like, note that for ourselves, or?
Well, and maybe to clarify, I don't know that we each will have to, like in a future meeting, we'll have to say, here's why I gave it this rating. So I think as we talked last time, this is a little bit of an iterative process that will probably, there will be some that probably as the ratings come together are pretty clear. Like maybe the commission as a whole or most of them rated that that's something we shouldn't consider. Then that probably will not have any further discussion unless the commissioner said, wants to bring that forward. And I know for those who were here last time, you kind of talked about that's how that things sort of fell out initially into some clear buckets. It's really when we get into those kind of strongly consider maybe in that need more information, where then it becomes a process of us having discussions in our commission meetings to just talk through the merits of the project. If it's something that if somebody on the commission feels very strongly about that, they think that's where we're bringing our voices and our kind of representing the community
So
to the meeting. But I would say, take notes. This is a very simple form just to get us to start to see how those fall out. But we should all be taking notes, not because we have to report on all of that, but because I think it'll aid our discussion. Does that?
Yeah, thank you. So
I haven't been through the process either, so I'm envisioning how it.
Yeah, so especially if we have some stronger opinions on certain things, we want to be prepared to sort of have those notes ready.
I expect that perhaps even starting on November 17th, but certainly after, there will be people who will be commissioners who will be advocating for projects that they strongly support, while other commissioners will be somewhat more lukewarm on those projects. So we're all gonna have to sharpen our knives and become advocates for what we really are. So I agree with Commissioner Davis. I think it's important, Vice Chair Davis, it's important to keep track of your thoughts. It'll help organize the discussion and make the discussion better. So
I think to look at what the requirements are. I think that's how you start. Does this meet the mission of what we've set out in the application? And that's, if they don't, that's a starting. Have all of the applications that belong to the various other commissions been removed, like Art Commission? And we got a nice letter from Parks and Rec.
No, nothing has been removed, so the commission is to consider all the applications. The Parks Commission has reviewed theirs and sent a letter of recommendation. My only thing is that if the commission wants somebody to appear before them to ask questions, or you have questions for another commission, maybe we could invite that commission chair in. We could do something like that if they're available to come, but I think the commission should consider reviewing all the 52 applications. And I don't believe that there's other commissions that, other than the Sustainable Commission on the one solar project, I don't believe any other commissions have been engaged other than the Park Commission,
Was sustainability involved at all?
not from city staff.
Commissioner Newby?
This probably a question for the city attorney, but my question is. Would our notes that we're making regarding the project be subject to, for lack of a better word, discovery or public? Would those notes be open to the public if I'm making notes about a certain project? And using those notes and making comments during the commission meeting, would those notes then need to be turned over to city staff?
I will ask the question of the city attorney.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments by the commissioners? If not,
I wanted to add one slight comment
Go ahead,
before you
John.
start reviewing. Item number 7 is a request for a four-way stop. There, the city already had a process for four-way stops. So if the commission grants funding for a four-way stop that's being requested, and it doesn't meet the warrants, and there's a warrant process that we have to evaluate, we will not install stops. So just so the commission knows.
And so are you saying if it warranted it, it would already have happened?
No, what I'm saying is that we already have an established process for community members to request an evaluation of certain intersection, community action request form. This is the first time I've seen it come through community initiated projects, but we would probably, if the funding goes forward, we already have a set funding for stop signs, so it would not necessarily need to come out of the Metro J and community initiated projects. And there may be the risk that it doesn't qualify because it doesn't meet the warrants.
Is that something that should be redirected by the submitter of that application to submit it in the appropriate manner that's already set up by the city?
So I would say it's up to the
I think so,
commission
the
to make
waste,
that
still gonna
decision.
waste some time.
So one of the things that we try not to do is interfere with this process, but I just wanted to provide data and facts of what we already have as a city, very similar to the paving program. So the commission can consider it, but make their decision based on the information I just provided.
Commissioner Thigpen?
I was just agreeing with her recommendation to possibly remove it. If we're not going to provide any funding, then not waste the time, but we have 52 applications. It may be easier with 51.
Mr. Schoen,
Yeah, just to kind of close the loop on this issue, Joelle, is that the only one that you've seen that kind of already has like a formal process for approval?
That and the paving request.
Okay, the paving and the four-way stop. Okay, thank you.
I think the city staff, city employees recognize that the initial review of these should really be done by the commission and not by city employees, and we need to come back with our recommendations, sort of then look to you about whether or not those recommendations are things that can be funded. Would you agree with that, Joel?
Yeah, I would agree with that. We didn't want to prematurely remove something that may be valid, but have the commission weigh all applications based on knowledge, data and information we provide to you.
That would be my follow-up question as a layperson. I'm not quite sure how to make a determination about the community value of a particular stop sign or what roads would need to be paved, so. I do kind of share Commissioner Thigpen's and Vice Chair Davis's concern about this. So you mentioned information provided, so will there be some like, or will it be in the applications, or how should we approach?
So the information provided is what I was discussing here with the commission. Essentially, I'm providing more information, inside information of what processes already exist with the city to either pave streets or stop So that's about the extent of the information that I was providing.
Thank you.
It seems to me the project would be funded from the city, so it's a win-win for this particular project, right? If you have money to do it, it will be done, right?
It has to go through a formal process. We have a traffic calming process.
Okay,
It's
so-
in our city website and there is a formal application that we do before a public stop.
So how do we sort that out when it comes to us? If we don't have that information and we approve it, then it comes in. I think that's complicated right now.
Yeah, so that's why I was trying to give you the information that if you approve that funding for that particular stop sign and we analyze it, it may not qualify for a stop sign. So it's a community member can't just request a stop sign wherever they want. It has to be valid and answer engineering warrants.
And just to add, there's only 2 projects that Joel, I think, is giving comment, so that's the 2 to consider.
What was the number of the other project?
It was a paving project. I don't know if they remember it.
And then the number 4-way stop.
Four-way stop is number 7. And there's an existing city process for people to submit for that. And that's something, if you want to send that out after the meeting, let us know. Existing process, here are the numbers for that. Is there did you notice any other projects on the list that are already in the budget, some city's budget somewhere? It's already on a project plan, it's already on tap to be a capital improvement project?
No, not that I could tell. Just a glance through the title and it will be requested. Those are the only 2 that stood out. And before this commission leaves over, I'm gonna find the page.
Okay. And anything on state land, like nothing else that jumped out at you as like the commission should just know that
Yeah, I
that's
don't
not
have
even
enough
something.
information to make those calls, just on the face value of the name of the project. Kind of the only one, there's only
Okay.
2 that stood out.
So up to us to send the question in if it's something that we just even have a question about it, whether that's even a permissible project to be funded by Measure J.
Joelle, one of the big requests is for the Jim Gross Memorial Sidewalk, which is the Vistachino project. $1 million request. I know that that's been discussed over and over again, and it was on tribal land, city land, and state land. Could you come to the November meeting with an update as to what the status of that is, so we know?
Sure, I can.
Can you do it now?
Well, one of the things that this commission has done sidewalk gap closure, so a sidewalk project per se is valid to be requested. This one is just a complicated project, and the funding may, the manager funds it, then they would just go through the process to get built and approved and built, right? Whatever that process is, it is in tribal land. It's just a very more complex project than a normal gap closure sidewalk project that's within city right away that we own.
All right, I appreciate your answer, thank you. Any other questions of Joelle or of Chris?
Sorry, it's like grill session here. Chris and Joel, just to clarify the process a little bit, have you scrubbed the numbers already? Because in terms of how we look at these projects and come up with our own ratings, I think it's hard to ignore some of the numbers and like to understand how realistic or why, it's $1 million to like half a mile maybe of sidewalk type of questions. So just curious if you have already sort of validated those numbers from the, or.
You can give your standard answer.
Yeah, so yeah. The standard is, no, we have not.
Okay.
And I think what I think during this process, what we try to get across is that the commission should look at the work done by the applicant. Did they go out and look at real numbers, right? Because that's that should be part of, well, I shouldn't.
Right.
Yeah, it's something to consider, right, if an applicant documented how much work they did to get real numbers, that's important. In my rule.
Commissioner Newby.
So talking about real numbers, my understanding is that any project that is funded by city funds, however much a part of it, would be subject to prevailing wages, which could impact the number.
I believe that is the case, and I believe even the grants, when you apply for the grant, the application or the agreement states that prevailing wage should be used.
Okay, so that will impact or could impact some of the projects.
It does, yeah, if you got a quote not using prevailing wage, yes, it does change the numbers.
Thank you.
Are there any other commission questions of either Chris or of Joelle?
I just wanted to confirm again with the timeline. So when we're reconvening November 17th and we've gone through our first round of ratings, I'm hoping that the primary discussion is going to be about what projects need more information. And so that then we can get enough notice, because I think it might be a little complex. And I want to make sure, having years ago kind of been like sort of involved in going through this as an applicant, as much notice as we can give with as much detail as possible about what we're looking for would be really helpful. So I just would like to hope that maybe we could prioritize that for the November discussion. And I believe that's already what we're doing. I just wanted to make sure that my understanding was clear.
Yes, you are correct in that, and some of that may be requested as just written information from applicants, but we also had in our timeline that it would be at the December 19th commission meeting, which is also right before the holidays, that would, if we are asking somebody to come in, they would be coming in to present it at that December meeting, if we stay on this schedule. So that gives them a month. Does that seem just, yeah, given your experience?
Yeah, I think a month is more than enough notice. I think I hadn't really kind of thought through that December 19th date in relation to the holidays. So I think that is, we can be forgiving as possible and letting people submit written information in advance or remote participation possibly. I think that would be great.
And I think it's up to the commission as we go through this process, if it feels like we need to another month of reviewing and getting people in because we want to make the best decisions. That's up to us. We're the ones guiding the process and the timeline. Correct? Right, great.
Well, and not only are we butting up against Christmas with the December 19th meeting, but the November 17th meeting is right before Thanksgiving. So we're doing this right in the middle of holiday season. So it's gonna be, I agree with you. We need to give people plenty of notice. Any other commissioner questions?
Sorry, let me turn to you one more time. We had a lot of projects requested in the Sunrise Park area. The buildings that are located there, obviously the pool but the Boys and Girls Club and Mizell Center, are those places that are owned by the city and just leased to?
I don't know the exact answer to your question, but I understand we do own most of those buildings. Yeah, we do own them.
Okay. The only one that I question is Mizell Center.
Yeah, I think we still own myself and
I believe so.
Yeah.
We'll confirm because I think we've had some internal discussions too, so we'll confirm, come back with the statement at the November meeting, but yeah.
Okay, because some seem like facility type issues. And if we own the building, sometimes we're responsible for it, so, okay.
That's important.
I did find a maybe that is project 41.
Thank you for checking. Are there any other commissioner questions of either Chris or Joelle? All right, we've made it. We're gonna be at done early, so I hope we can stay on the schedule for the rest of the year.
No.
Yeah. No, I got not gonna recognize you. Go ahead, Commissioner Newby.
Sorry. With respect to the buildings at Sunrise Park. My understanding is that some of them lease the land that they're on from the city. And they own the building. And my question is. In terms of the commission making decisions about those buildings, does that make a difference?
No, it doesn't, and again, we'll confirm how that all is structured. There, but there.
Getting some real-time responses here. Tabitha watching this soon. So, we do own the Mizell Center, and the Boys and Girls Club will require some additional research in response to that question. But every other building in Sunrise is a city facility. And if there are specific facility related questions, obviously send them to the group here. And if I can answer any questions beyond that, they'll send them along to me.
Thank you very much for the clarification. Appreciate it.
Peter,
Mr. Isaac.
I think it would be helpful, if, once you find out what is what, who owns and what the responsibilities are, it'd be helpful if you just send that out to all of us as soon as you can. Then we all know.
Yeah, and I think historically, it was irrelevant who owned the building. If it's a grant to whatever project proponent, they want a city facility.
Right.
You know, spruced up, then they submit the application and it's a good project. You need to vote on it regardless of who the owner is.
Right, and that makes sense, that just the questions come up, we might as well know as soon as possible.
I know prior commissions have funded projects both for Boys and Girls Club and for myself, so at least in the past, commissioners funded those projects.
Yeah, Mr. J has funded both projects at the Boys and Girls Club and the Mizell Center, so whether it's city owned or not, to Joe's point, I don't know that it matters, but we'll get the information out to you. I did want to add one thing, Chair. I know that the commissioners we've got several large dollar projects here, and I know that the commission recommended a cap of 500,000. I just want to remind the commission that the city council didn't necessarily override that, but made the recommendation that if you like a project and you think it's a compelling project and it's over 500,000, then please consider it.
I have another real-time response here. Let's put Tabitha on speaker here. But the Boys and Girls Club is leased land, but they own the building.
Thank you. Vice Chair Davis.
I just realized that we kind of jumped right into process, but I just want to thank the 52 applicants who all spent an incredible amount of time submitting their applications for this process. That just personally very encouraged by the level of engagement in the community. I'm excited to review all 52 of these projects, as I'm sure my fellow commissioners are. But this is just an exciting opportunity for the city to be able to fund several pretty significant projects and meaningful projects.
And I will second that. I also want to thank the public members who had submitted applications tonight to address us, and as well at the meeting in September. So thank you all for submitting the applications and for having the energy and the will to come before us to try to encourage us to vote in favor of them. So thank you. With that, we move on unless commissioners have any other questions. Let's move on to public comment on non-agenda items. Are there any public comments on non-agenda items? There are not. Next item on the agenda is item number 10, Staff and Measure J Oversight Commission member items and requests. Do any of you have any items or requests? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn, and I look forward to seeing everybody at November 17th meeting. There a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. See you next month.